Good morning. It's August 18th and it's time to start ripeness check on the whites as we're near ripeness, and it's important to pick grapes at the absolute best possible ripeness level. This decision is probably the most important that a winemaker will have to make during the course of harvest, and the level of ripeness will have a great influence on the style and the balance of the wine that will result from those grapes. You can well imagine that picking early, you have less sugar, more acidity, fresher style of aromas. And on the other hand, if you pick really late, more sugar, less acidity, and riper, heavier type of aromatics. So how do we proceed? Basically, there are two dimensions. One that is totally subjective, which is walking around the vineyards and tasting the berries themselves and determining whether we like what we taste in terms of aromatics and sweetness and acidity ratio. And that will totally be different from one person to the other. And another one that's totally objective, and it's using analytical parameters such as sugar concentration, pH, and total acidity. And for that second verification, it's also really important that the sample that we get from a plot be fully representative of what we'll have at the vineyard level. So let me show you how we proceed. So here we're in our Viognier vineyard, and I usually use the trellising and the posts as a distance measure. I look at a row like this, which is about 250 yards long, and I will determine that I will pick a cluster every third post. Now it's important also to pick on each side, because the side we're facing right now is the one that's facing east, and the sun being less hot in the morning than it is in the afternoon, typically the grapes that we'll have on that side will be less ripe than the one that we'll have on this side. Now, if we look closely and you look at this cluster of Viognier, it looks pretty ripe. So it's about time to do this. Now, again, when you look at this cluster that looks very ripe, and if you go inside, you look at that one in the shade and it doesn't look as ripe. So also when you pick your clusters, it's important to pick alternately clusters that are on the outside and clusters that are on the inside. It's only by being very methodical and rigorous that you will have in your crate a number of clusters or bunches that are truly representative of your vineyard. Now, once you harvest those clusters, you destem, you crush, and then you do the analytical measures on the juice itself. So like I said, sugar content, pH, acidity, and that gives you another indication of ripeness, what we call physiological ripeness. By combining two impressions, the subjective part, tasting the grapes in the vineyards, as well as the analytical part, you have a very good indication of where your grapes are. Now, this is the key element of deciding when to pick. Other elements can also enter in the equation. One is the weather forecast. Are they forecasting a lot of heat or rainstorm? Also, team availability. Is my team going to be around for picking tomorrow, for instance? And as well as equipment or winery space. So deciding when to pick is kind of a Rubik cube of aligning many elements that change every day. That's what makes making one such a challenging and exciting field.